Yes, guys, hello and welcome back to the Spurs-Related YouTube channel and audio podcast. I hope everyone's doing very well today. Today we have got a special guest, but also we are bringing you a tactical analysis piece with our special guest, as well as a transfer update on all things João Palhinha and all things Yoane Wissa. Things have hotted up about Wissa in literally the last 30 minutes. He's linked with two big clubs, one of which is Tottenham Hotspur. But are we the front runners? We're going to bring you all the latest transfer updates. And I'm joined alongside, as always, Thomas Frank's AI son, Frank Thomas. And Kish is probably thinking, what am I talking about? That is actually his name, Frank Thomas. So, Frank, how you doing, mate?
I'm all right. It's a special one this evening. I'm looking forward to it. It should be good.
Awesome stuff. And yeah, as I said, special guest, we have Lily White Lab himself, Kish. Kish, it's been 2 years, mate, since we had you on the channel. And I know you're back creating content again. First of all, mate, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, man. I'm happy to be here. Obviously back on YouTube on my own channel. Trying to be consistent now and create as much as possible. So happy to be here and happy to contribute.
Absolutely. We're going to bring up the tactical board. We're going to bring up all things related to how Thomas Frank may play things out. And we're going to quiz Kish on maybe, which players are the missing piece of the puzzle. But let's get straight into a transfer update. As I said, all things Wissa and Palhinha to start with. And guys, get your comments in the chat on your thoughts on these two links. Obviously, Palhinha is not really a new link. And to be fair, we were linked with Wissa a few months ago. But anyway, the latest is, and you got to take some of this with a pinch of salt, as I was talking to Frank about in the backstage, because listen, it's not tier 1 journalists, it's maybe not even tier 2 journalists. However, the latest is the Nottingham Forest owner Marinakis is hoping Man City come in with a bid to sign Morgan Gibbs-White, who told Marinakis at the end of last season he would only leave for a certain level of club, and that Marinakis does not believe Tottenham fit that category. I mean, I'm absolutely baffled. I don't know about you boys. I'm going to come straight to Kish on this one, because how on earth can an owner say that he's only going to sell a player, no matter what the price is that comes in, if they're at a top level? Why does he care where his players go?
Yeah, it's such a weird one. He seems to be a bit of like a egomaniac. I think he's being very controlling of everything that happens, and I think it's pretty irrelevant. I'm not sure if he maybe sees Spurs as a bit of a direct competitor to Nottingham Forest, or where he wants Nottingham Forest to be. But I think there's a clear step up there. I'm sure the wages we'd pay are probably higher as well. So that doesn't make much sense to me, to be honest, and especially with the release clause sort of stuff. I think it's odd to put that kind of secret release clause in, but then only have it for specific clubs. Normally, you maybe have Champions League playing clubs in the clause, but there's no way of differentiating between what sides he wants to sell for. So it's a weird one.
Bizarre, very bizarre indeed, as you said. And Frank, anything to add? Why have we got into this? I mean, like I said, it may not even be true. Like it's Alex Crook, with all due respect, not a tier 1 journalist as far as we're concerned, but it just seems so odd, doesn't it, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of feels like we say the same thing nearly every day, that it feels like he's just still throwing his toys out the pram for no real reason, and without a real possibility of it actually succeeding in the way he wants it to probably succeed. I still don't see, if they go legal, fully legal, and lodge all these complaints and things, I don't see, one, Tottenham being bullied, and as I say, whether we like him or not, Daniel Levy being bullied, and two, it, as Ben Jacobs said the other day, it also means that that Forest are going to have to air their own dirty laundry, and I don't think that's something that Marinakis will want to do. I don't think that's something Forest will want to do, and so I think this is all. To be honest, I think the whole saga of Gibbs-White has been a lot of people who nobody really knows anything, it feels like, but everyone's kind of clinging on to little bits of information here and there and trying to put out a story. And I think this is just another case of that. He possibly thinks that, whether it be because, as Kish says, that he views us as a direct rival, or whether he's just genuinely got the ump and he's throwing his toys out the pram and now he wants anything but him going to Tottenham. But as I say, I think until we get a real solid piece of information, I don't think much has probably changed.
Yeah, let's see how this one plans out. Obviously, we're waiting really for the Fabrizio Romano update. That's not just a regurgitation of what he's been saying for the last 2 weeks after saying, here we go. All we've had is that there's legal action being taken place. And really nothing much more concrete than that, is there really? Like there's these rumours, as we've discussed, to do with if he's going to a different club, whether that's Manchester City. But it is a bizarre situation for sure. And I just want to see the back of this saga. I obviously want Morgan Gibbs-White to join Tottenham. I think he's a top player. You guys all know how I feel about it. I'm sure Kish really rates him as well. But let's be honest, we need to crack on. We need to make a couple more signings as well, which we will discuss in due course. Simon Zanier saying, evening boys, at least we've signed Oliver Boost from Leeds. I don't think that's quite the marquee signing we needed, but certainly good for the academy and everything else. Wissa wants to go to Arsenal. Arsenal, where's that come from? Living in my head rent-free, clearly. Wissa wants to go to Newcastle. Let's put that in the bloopers. And hot take, I like Archie, but don't get the hype that he's our midfield star boy. Can't see how people rate him over Basuma at the 6. Basuma looked levels above him last season. Kish, what's your opinion on Basuma? Do you think he should stick around, or do you think we'll probably get rid of him because he's only got 1 year left on his deal and probably, will end up somewhere else?
I think Basuma splits opinions so much. I think for me, I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I think in terms of actual ability, I think he does something in the squad that many of them can't do, which is take the ball under pressure. And he's so good at, you can give it to him with 1-2 man on his back and he can turn out into space. I think the issue with Basuma is his consistency and sort of not putting his all into every single game, I think, or not always being there mentality wise. I think it's probably the right time to move on from Basuma. I think Bergvall and Gray are both so talented. I don't think Gray or Bergvall, to be honest, is as good as Basuma in the holding role yet, especially not at the top level Basuma. But I think it's time now to move on and start this sort of new transition period into Gray, Bergvall, Sarr, and then potentially one more if we can go and get one more deep line playmaker role. So yeah. Sure,
yeah. We'll talk about the deep line playmaker or number 6 in just a moment for sure, because we're going to be coming on to Palhinha, who is a part of the update. But the next update, guys, because it's never a Spurs-related update without Morgan Gibbs-White, but the newer piece is more around this man, Yoane Wissa, who of course got 19 non-penalty kick Premier League goals last season. Only Mohamed Salah actually got more than that. So pretty big numbers, I have to say. And the news is that according to the BBC, Tottenham target Wissa is unsettled at speculation around his future and has consequently left Brentford's training camp in Portugal. Spurs, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest are all interested in the forward. And then we've got the update from Ben Jacobs, who was on our channel a few days ago, who says that Newcastle are set to make a formal bid, believed to be in excess of 30 million, and that Brentford wanted 50. And we got the Ornstein update just 20-30 minutes ago, that Newcastle make an offer for Wissa. The bid has been rejected for £25 million, which just seems so short of the mark of his valuation, really. Apparently, personal terms for the 28-year-old would be no issue. But the actual, crux of the matter is Newcastle are clearly very, very much trying to get this player. But also, as Ben Jacobs has said, Spurs are also keen for Wissa. So it seems like a 2-horse race. Whether the Newcastle horse is miles ahead, we're not entirely sure. But clearly, they've actually are the club that's made the bid. Kish, I'll come to you on this one. Yoane Wissa, like him as a player? Do you think he'd fit into Tottenham, or do you think he's not very much a player that would fit the boot?
I think Wissa is, in terms of profile, the perfect opposite of Solanke. There's always a debate whether with your backup striker, do you get someone of the same mold of the 9 that's there, so you can kind of interchange them and the system doesn't change too much? Or do you bring someone in who can do something completely different? I think Wissa is much more of a natural goal scorer than Solanke. He wants to stay around the width of the penalty box. He doesn't want to kind of travel into the 10 area to link play. He wants to be on the last man. He's got a real knack for finding space in the box. And I watched his full goal catalogue of last season, and so many of his goals are just like him being first off the mark for a rebound or a flick on from a corner and him just being at the back post to tap it in. He's got a real sense of where to be at the right time. I think he's quite a basic player, so you're going to get what you think with him, which is goals probably, but not much else. I think if people get frustrated by Johnson, I think you'd probably get frustrated by Wissa in terms of all-round play. But he is a goal scorer, and that is a great alternative to have for Solanke. I think at that price point, I wouldn't be looking to pay anything over 30 million for him because, one, his age. Two, I'm pretty sure, how long has he got left for his contract? Is it 2 years?
Frank did the research on this earlier. I believe it is 2 years left.
I think that 50 million mark seems high for me, especially as he's quite a limited player. Like he's great at what he does, but you're not going to get much else from him. Just a correction. I think it's 1 year left on his Brentford deal. There, so that even more
justifies it. Yeah.
So I'd look anything under 30 million. I'd be interested, especially as a proper alternative from Solanke. But at that price point, I'd probably move to other targets.
Interesting that you said he's like sort of the opposite to a Solanke and would give us an option. But I just personally, I feel like 30 million for Wissa. I think we should challenge it because I think it's a player that will score goals, and we need to score. Every team needs to score goals, but we relied actually quite heavily on Brennan Johnson last year. And that's the thing. If Kudus comes into this setup and doesn't hit the ground running with goals and assists, we're going to need goals from elsewhere. Solanke, only 9 Premier League goals last season, obviously was injured for some of that. But I don't know, Wissa, I just think it might be the one that gets away that we'd regret because he's ready now. He's 28. He's in his prime. I don't know. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. I agree with you both. I think that for the right price, I think this would be a good deal. I think the right price is probably between 25 and 35 in that sort of ballpark. I think football's moving in a way just because of a lot of things in social media. Football Manager as a game probably hasn't helped. That we sit there and look at someone that's 28 and instantly think they're kind of old because we see all these guys coming in now who are 17, 18 and they're dominating games. Bergvall came at 18 and he's one of our better players or whatever, and we see this, and so we instantly think if you aren't doing it at 23, if you aren't at your best at 23, and Mbappe was probably a cause of this to an extent, that because he came in and was so elite so quickly, we all it pushes the age back again, and what you expect of top players. So 28, as you say, he's in his prime. We should be theoretically in his prime. And so between 25 and 35 would be, I think, a very good deal, either as a backup to Solanke or someone that can play off the left as well. I think it would be a good pickup for Tottenham.
Interesting stuff. I put a poll in the YouTube chat for those watching live, whether you take Wissa at Tottenham or not. So let me know. It'd be interesting to see the general consensus on this one. But we can talk about how Wissa would fit into the lineup in just a moment's time when we go through the tactical board with Kish, which I'm really, really excited to do. But the last update for you guys watching is more around the potential for Joane Palhinha, right? So Joane Palhinha is a player that has been linked with Tottenham for a while, but also Alistair Gold updated us today that Spurs would have to sell the likes of a Basuma, the likes of a Sarr, hopefully not, to get a Palhinha involved in the team. So it looks like a midfielder will have to leave Tottenham for us to actually sign a midfielder according to Football London and Alistair Gold, who I do trust quite heavily. Kish, what do you make of that? Do you think that, I mean, firstly, who would you sell out of the midfielders if that is to be true, to make room for Palhinha? And secondly, do you like Palhinha as a player? Because I've seen a lot of mixed things about he's too old and that, he's not a very good passer. What do you think?
For me, Palhinha is a top player, regardless of, let's just get that clear. Objectively, he's a great player, but what he is a ball winner. He's a destroyer. He's so good in duels. He's so good at managing space. He knows where to be to screen that back four. I think overall he's just a great player. But in terms of fit, for me, I don't think he's exactly what we need. I think, especially with the way we're going to set up under Frank, it's going to be a lot more solid. You're going to have two players in there, and so I think it's less about a player that is so elite defensively, and it's more about the duo and what they can do to complement each other. I think the main thing I see us lacking right now is the ability to play through the lines in midfield. I think both the midfielders that play, to be honest, all the midfielders that played against Reading, they're all carry first midfielders. They all are good dribblers. They're all good at kind of beating a couple men, but none of them are necessarily great at passing through the lines, but also being able to control the game and slow the game down at times, keep the game ticking. So I think Palhinha is a player who wins the ball and then lays off simple passes to teammates. He's not expansive with his passing, but he does fill a role of basically being able to screen the back four to a top level, which we haven't had in a long time. None of our midfielders, I think, are good at that. I think Bentancur and Bissouma they want to be involved. They want to press high. They want to be energetic, but they don't necessarily want to be conservative and manage those spaces left in front of the defense. So Palhinha is someone that can do that. But again, it's not necessarily the perfect fit for me.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be good to see who your perfect fit is and who your top player is. And I think it's about time we maybe delved into that. Frank, just very quickly before we do, anything to further add to what Kish was saying there about, interesting point about we don't have a midfielder that can play through the lines and they're all very much defense, carry first and not a progressive player. What do you think?
Yeah, it kind of leads on to one of the questions that I kind of had planned for you today. And I think, and the way that I've kind of looked at it is I think Tottenham need more of a lighthouse in midfield, as you kind of alluded to. A bit like City have with Rodri, someone that can win a tackle and isn't, inept defensively, but can see a pass and pick things out. And like Adam Wharton is the obvious example, I think, of that he can do both, but is so almost Gerrard-esque at times that spraying balls out and seeing things quickly. And so is that your opinion that you think Spurs need a lighthouse more than the destroyer in that middle of the park?
For me, yeah. I think I'm always going to be in favour of prioritizing in possession stuff over out of possession stuff. I think that's the way I view football. I think as a team like Spurs, we should be looking more about what we can do with the ball than without the ball. And for me, there's enough steel in a midfield that we have in terms of physicality. Like maybe they're not all naturally defensive minded, but they're all able to win duels. They're all pretty strong, can run, good tactical kind of understanding, a lot of them as well. So I think with a double pivot in there, I think you get a bit more protection. I think we've got top defenders as well, and I'll come on to kind of how we might protect the midfield too more if they aren't necessarily destroyers, and how we can do that with the defenders behind them. But I think that's the key really.
Interesting stuff, guys. Let's get into the tactics. That was your 20-minute transfer update. Hopefully those guys that tune in for the transfer updates enjoy that. But hopefully you guys will stick around for this tactics piece, because I really do think you're going to find it interesting with Kish. As I said, he's got a great channel, Lily White Labs, so please do check that out. I've got it in the description of the video, and we'll also plug it at the end so you can go direct from the chat. But let's get straight into it, if that's all right, Kish. We're going to share your screen. And guys, the numbers are growing. There's a few in the chat watching live now, 60 or 70 of you across all platforms. Please make sure you're smashing the like button. If you're watching a repeat, smash the like button Subscribe if you are new to Spurs Related, on the march to 4,000 subscribers now. And turn on those notification bells to never miss us go live, which is pretty much daily at the moment. And you never miss a video. So there's my 1 out of 2 plugs for the episode. Kish, as you may or may not know, I only plug twice in a video. And if I do, I get a slap on the wrist from the followers. So I think it's fair enough. No one wants to hear me say smash the like every 5 minutes. But you guys know to smash the like because it helps us out. But let's that's the wrong one. Let's talk all things tactics. And we've got this lovely board up that Kish has drawn out with our starting 11. Frank, I'm going to let you ask the first couple of questions to Kish. But obviously we're looking, Kish, to understand how this number 6 you're talking about could fit in and who the perfect mold will be. So I guess a case of changing some of those names on that team sheet. Yeah. But as I said,
this is kind of I put this roughly of what, with the squad we currently have, how I think we may set up. It's not obviously set in stone. Sure. So obviously this is not including any new transfers. So yeah.
No problem. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think it will be great to demo some of these build-up plays. Hopefully you guys enjoy these tactical analysis videos. If you do, make sure you go and check out Lily White Labs. But Frank, what's your first question for Kish?
So it kind of follows on from the Lighthouse sort of question a minute ago. You posted something about, or in the last hour, about Archie Gray, where you said that you think he probably would suit that Porro role quite well that he played at the weekend, where he dropped into the back three and played balls over the top, and that kind of suits as a role. Do you think there's much of a chance then, going by that because that makes complete sense, and I think that's a very logical point. Do you think there's much chance then that he suits that role in midfield in that double pivot, or is that something that you don't really see?
I think Gray definitely has the potential to play one of these midfield roles. My issue at the moment is how stacked we are there. We've got obviously Bentancur, Bergvall, Sarr as a 3. I think if Gibbs-White is to come in, I think he could potentially get some minutes there as well. And so the reason I kind of brought up the Gray at right back idea is pretty much primarily about his development and how can we get him as many minutes as possible without kind of throwing him into the deep end. I think these roles here, in terms of receiving it here, is going to be a lot about what Frank develops as we go in terms of the patterns. And if you get chucked into that one of those positions sporadically, you may struggle to kind of grasp it straight away. I think a lot of what we saw on Saturday was pretty basic stuff, and I think Gray could easily do what was done. Obviously, that's the first game of what we're looking at with Frank, but it was a lot of sort of Romero playing in, bouncing it back, and I think that looks so simple, but that is a tactic to basically draw the press in. So you play into the midfield, and as the midfielder receives it, you get like a bit of pressure, and that kind of invites the opposition to come and press, and then you pop it back and they might carry on their press, and then spaces open up for Romero, who's probably our best passer of the ball, to kind of spray it out here or play through the lines to Bergvall or whatever. So there will be more to come from those midfielders. I think what they did on the weekend was pretty basic, and I think Gray could do that, but obviously that's the opposition. That's a lower opposition, and we'll be facing probably something a bit more challenging in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. I think I don't think there's much to sort of critique, and I guess that's the importance of then keeping Christian Romero, not just this year but long term as well, because as you say that he's so important on the ball and breaking the lines. I mean, the amount of times you can pick up bits from last season and things, and whether he's going over the top or whether it's just through the middle or whatever. There's so many times that Christian Romero breaks teams down. And solely last year, a lot of the time, we actually, worryingly or not, and sometimes it wasn't the greatest thing, but our centre-backs were actually our sort of greatest creative threat at points last year. But I guess if you use that as a strength rather than it was a weakness at times under Ange, that we were so uncreative elsewhere that they were the most creative. If you use it as a strength under Thomas Frank, that Romero is going to be creative for those like James Maddison to allow them to be creative, I guess that is a positive thing.
100%. And I think that worries me as well in terms of how reliant we are on Romero. And that's why I so badly want, let's say, a Wharton in here. Just put him on 22 or whatever. Because that then reduces the responsibility on Romero. And obviously, as he's so great at that, but you also want that from these positions here. Romero is always going to be in his own third pretty much, maybe in the middle third at times. And you also want that progressive passing when you do get into midfield, because that's the next step. That's the second phase of build-up, and you want to supply your attackers. And obviously, Bergvall can carry it through, but that's never as effective as just playing a straight pass because of the speed at which the ball travels at. So I think that's one thing. I also think part of the reason we had Porro playing this reserve right back role is to add that extra build-up progressor. So he's obviously a great passer of the ball. We know Porro is not the best defensively. So I think people are a bit concerned about him playing as this sort of third centre back, but that's all about his ability on the ball, all about his ability to play these passes. So yeah, I think it's key to get this player, I think, because it's sort of a separate role. Obviously, Romero can do this, and at times Romero can probably punch it through to the number 10. But you want a creative passer in midfield as well, in my eyes. Not maybe to play every game. You don't necessarily need it in every game. In more transitional games, carriers probably work effectively. But I think when we're trying to unpick the lock of certain teams, you want a player who can pass it from midfield.
Absolutely, really interesting, Kish. If I was to say to you, you get 2 more signings for the rest of the window with, say, I don't know. I know this isn't very realistic depending on the investment stuff, but say you have another 120 million or so. Which 2 players are you buying? Oh, saying that Wharton will probably cost you 100 million, so that's not very good. But maybe 150 million then. I know, very unlikely. Is it a Wharton, and who else would you think needs to go into this 11?
So I think I've been caught up with Gibbs-White. Let's just put Gibbs-White in because of a certain thing I saw in that game where the 10 would often stay high here when the defenders had the ball. But as soon as, let's say, because we knew Johnson was sort of playing out here, let's just imagine that's Johnson, and then Porro is this reserve right back, and there's this massive hole in between the right back who's playing nice and deep and Johnson who wants to be on the last line. And so there's this massive gap, and that creates a problem in progression. So what we saw is when the ball was punched into midfield, as we knew that ball was traveling, Devine, who was the number 10, was pulling out to these areas, and that was really benefiting the build-up on that right flank because of the gaps there. Obviously, at times, Porro was clipping balls over the top, but you don't want to be one-dimensional. So this really allows for that progression, and if it is Johnson over here, I think if it is Kudus can probably come and collect it here off Porro, and he's quick enough, he can carry the ball well to then carry it into these areas. But someone like Johnson, you don't want him in that area. You want him high. So someone like Gibbs-White, if he can come and collect it here, it's almost you're playing 2 sort of roles as the number 10. You're occupying the classic number 10 role, but you're also dropping deep to help progress the ball. And we saw Maddison do this a lot under Ange, but especially we saw Damsgaard do it as well under Frank at Brentford. And the excitement I get from Gibbs-White doing this, because of how powerful he is in terms of carrying it, he'd be perfect for that role. He's so explosive. He's great on the half turn. And I think him pulling out to these sort of wide areas and then traveling in field with it, and then sort of playing off passes in behind for Solanke or Tell or whoever, that really excites me. And that doesn't necessarily mean taking Maddison out of the team. It might mean in certain games, Maddison's out of the team. We know he's had his injury problems. Maybe at times Maddison might play on the left over here, because I think Mikey Moore we saw was very narrow. I think Maddison would shine in that area too. So there's just lots of adaptable points to this squad that Frank's building, and I think Gibbs-White in that certain role really does excite me. So I think I kind of want that transfer to go through because I kind of see the vision with it. Where I didn't kind of before, just because I knew we had Maddison. I think there's rumours as well that Maddison's had bigger injury problems than people have realised. So that's what I think with Gibbs-White. And then obviously back to the midfield pass, I'd look at someone like Wharton. The dream for me is Baleba, because Baleba can do both the passing stuff, but also is a monster defensively. I think he'll cost north of 100 million. So I think Wharton on the ball is is second to none. I worry about him a little bit physically. But again, you don't have to necessarily play him in every single game where we're facing a lot of defensive transitions and stuff. You might play a more physically capable midfielder. And then when we're trying to unpick lesser teams, I think Wharton would be perfect. So those are probably the two that I would look to sign.
Interesting. Assuming Gibbs-White goes through, so I won't make that one of your two signings. Do you, from what you're saying there, obviously Gibbs-White drifting right to almost help a Kudus, as you were mentioning, also to come and get the ball off Porro and playing that lot of sort of double role as you were alluding to. Do you think that we could, if Maddison was fully fit, play Gibbs-White and Maddison, or do you think that's far from possible?
I think that's definitely possible in a midfield. I think the issue I have with Gibbs-White, let's just have Maddison here. So if let's say we have Maddison and Gibbs-White, my issue with Gibbs-White in this role, especially from what I saw on the weekend, is he wants to play at constant high intensity. So him kind of slowing down, looking at his options, maybe playing out there, receiving it back, turning out. That's not Gibbs-White. That's not the type of player he is. He's a constant player who wants to force the issue, be direct, be explosive. Turn on it, carry it at fast speeds, and so I from what I've seen from that first game, I think Frank, especially early on, is going to try to build a real foundation of this solid sort of 5 players to really recycle the ball, draw the press in, and yeah, I think Gibbs-White is more than capable of playing this. But if he wants that sort of solid possession-based early build-up, I don't think Gibbs-White is necessarily that. Although in more transitional games, maybe, or in games where we really need to force the issue and we're chasing a goal, I think Gibbs-White is great at receiving in these areas and then turning and traveling with it. He's obviously a very creative player as well once he does get in there. I think we're probably more likely to see what I had earlier, which was sort of Maddison on a left sort of inside role with the doggy kind of providing the width, and Gibbs-White with the 10, or you could even do it the other way around. I think they bring very different qualities, both excellent players. Gibbs-White here, he's more robust, he's more quicker, stronger, so you might get him like receiving these pockets and driving with it, whereas with Maddison, I think you get more him receiving in the pockets and combining with people or looking to play people in behind. So it's two very different types of number 10s, but I think there's enough space for both of them in the amount of games we have, especially with Maddison's fitness issues. Yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Awesome, mate. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense, and it's food for thought, isn't it? It's exciting if we can get a likes of Maddison, fully fit, and then if Gibbs-White obviously does go through, which up in the air as we've been discussing. What is that set? I'll come to Frank in a minute because I know he has one or two more questions for you. But in terms of, obviously, like I said, Gibbs-White not counting as that second signing. Wharton's maybe your first signing. Who else do you think Tottenham need? Do you think we need to strengthen elsewhere? Let me know your thoughts on that.
Well, I know that there's a lot of debate around an extra defender. So the way I'm looking at the moment is that we have 4 fullbacks in. If I'm counting Gray as what I talked about earlier as a right back, because I don't think a traditional right back role suits him at all. I don't want Gray on this touchline at all. I want Gray sort of in these areas to be able to punch passes through. So I think if Gray and Porro, and then Spence I like on the left. I really do like Spence on the left. I probably prefer him on the left to the right. I think we've seen Frank use Lewis Potter in a similar way where he starts wide and then carries in field, and I think Spence could be excellent at that. So that doesn't worry me. So that's 4 fullbacks in my eyes. And then the centre-back issue, which is less of an issue now with Romero, Van der Ven, Danso and Vuskovic. I think Vuskovic is going to surprise a lot of people and probably be part of the first team setup straight away. And so I'm just trying to think where. So for me, the defense is set. I think if we were to sign one more other than Wharton, I'd sign that Solanke alternative, because Solanke's, I find him quite frustrating. I think he's a great footballer, but he lacks in certain things that I think might harm us. And I think we need a different option there. Someone who's basically like not necessarily a poacher, but a proper striker who can get shots off nice and quickly. I think Solanke takes too long to get shots off at times. His trigger's very slow. And I find him too busy. So he'll be running channels over here, or he'll be dropping in here to get it off Maddison, and then
drops in deep a lot when we were. I mean, it's very rare we were going long under Ange, but when I saw that ball booted or by the defence, he always seems to be in the semicircle rather than, very much Kane syndrome, I call it, where you just drop far too deep and allow, there's just no one up front at that point. And then
exactly, and I think that probably is partly a coaching issue and then partly a personnel issue as well. I think there's scope for it, especially with the way Frank uses his wide forwards. If Solanke is going to drop deep, he can be more of a facilitator. But I think yesterday, for example, there was no real, sorry, not yesterday, on the weekend when the game was, there was no real reason for him to be over here. We had Divine sort of occupying these spaces, and we always need someone to ask questions of the back two in here. So whether that's not Solanke, where Solanke's dropping in, then you want someone like Tel running in behind or Kudus running in behind. But you always want, when you get into the final third, one or two players need to be making the box, at least two, probably. And if your striker's not doing that, that's an issue. And I think Frank does wonders with strikers, and I think he'll actually mold Solanke a lot more on what he wants. Every striker Frank's worked with pretty much has had great seasons, goal scoring seasons. You look at Tony, you look at Wissa, obviously Mbeumo more of a wide forward, but all of these guys. So I think I'm not concerned around it, but I would like someone probably on the younger side to sort of deputize Solanke, someone who's really different from him. There's a young striker at Porto that I like. I'm trying to think who else there is.
Yeah, I know which striker you mean.
Samu, I forgot his surname's quite long. Samu something.
Yes, he's very decent.
Yeah. So he's a proper lot of running behind, want to score goals type striker. He'd probably be around 40-ish million, I'd say.
Samu Omorodoyan or something.
Yes, that's it.
He's only 21 as well.
Yeah. So he's got a big future. I think he's been called up to Spain already. And I think people have been calling for Lancashire, and I think Lancashire's the right type of player. For me, Lancashire's not of the quality that we need at the moment, but he is definitely the right type of player. And we saw that what he is with that goal he scored. He's just waiting in between the posts for anything to drop. And that's the type of player I would probably target to deputize Solanke.
Interesting stuff. Frank, any final thoughts, and maybe one more question for Kish, conscious of time, but
I kind of want to flip to the other side of the pitch and look at the back line quickly again. You spoke about the goalkeepers on your channel and the difference between what the two of them bring you, and when you look at the average position maps on Saturday, we were so much deeper in that second half, and largely I think it was down to Vicario, little other tweaks as well, but the change of goalkeeper, because instantly your goalkeeper is a few yards back, the whole team shifts a few yards back, and that's just a natural result of that. So kind of, and you also mentioned how Kinski can almost play as a third centre half when you're building up.
Yeah.
And so I guess that gives Porro, and Udogie, but Porro, who was playing this previous role, freedom.
Yeah.
That is something that is obviously going to be used a lot more when we have a lot of the ball, like Burnley at home on that first day.
Yeah.
Do you see Kinski then being one that comes into this team a lot quicker than maybe a lot of us think he will be?
So I think I don't. I think Vicario will get the nod, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as people are saying. I think Frank's always been big on his keepers having the ability to play short passes, but also these chipped passes into the channels. Ability to also go long at times. I think going long is pretty simple. It's just most keepers can do it. But in terms of these wide goal kicks, Kinski's got excellent distribution in that sense. I think as I touched on my video, Reading pressed us in a really narrow way, and it left the outball being the two fullbacks. So let's imagine Reading are kind of pressing this area. They've got all these kind of guys marked, and the out ball that they left was either fullback. And Kinski was excellent at just being composed, receiving the ball, not being phased, and just chipping the ball out to either fullback. I think that remained the out ball in the second half, and Vicario struggled to replicate what Kinski had done, which I think then the game kind of turned. I think he misplaced a couple of passes, and then obviously the opposition get the throw in, and then we sit back, and the momentum swings. And I think it's so much of those little moments where you give the ball away and kind of build up that shift the momentum of a game, and that can have detrimental effects. And I don't think we realize that sometimes. So you really want security from the way you're building up. You want to be able to build attacks consistently without giving away cheap possession, because it's almost a blessing to have the ball at build up. It's like you're starting your plan. Your plan is to build up in a certain way, and you don't want to mess that up from the goalkeeper, because that's like you haven't even got to where you're trying to get to yet. So I think in that sense, but I also think Kinski has a long way to go in terms of his shot stopping, and we know that's the primary reason for being a goalkeeper and what they need to do. I think we'll see them both get a lot of minutes in pre-season. I think Frank's probably pretty split at the moment. Neither of them are great at commanding their box from crosses. But Kinski's got the advantage for sure in terms of ball playing. So it's an interesting one to see play out, I think.
But I guess that's something that only maybe if they're going to use Kinski and try him out in certain things, that's that sort of way of playing. Obviously, the versatility and the switching of the systems from Thomas Frank quite often, and little tweaks here and there. I guess that using a goalkeeper as almost a central centre half is something that's probably only going to happen in games where Tottenham have a lot of the ball and are comfortable and want to create more, giving the fullbacks more freedom to attack.
Exactly, and I made it like a bit of a joke on my video about imagine rotating the goalkeepers, and obviously I'm not suggesting doing that, but I think Frank will weigh it up and say that I think we need to prevent goals first before we think about ball playing, basically, in terms of a goalkeeper anyway. In terms of against teams that are sitting off, this is what I kind of envisaged. And I think we see a lot of teams doing this now, a lot of forward-thinking teams, dominant teams, where they have basically an extra player and build up, which is the goalkeeper. And this requires a really good technical goalkeeper on the ball. Because previously, we have in the original setup, you have Porro here to build that three, and Kinski's sort of just a spare part. And you have then the double pivot here. But if the keeper is able to come out of his box and be that third centre back, then it basically opens up an extra player. And Porro and Udogie can possibly provide that width. You've still got that 3-2 base here to circulate possession, and it basically just gives you an extra player. Obviously, very risky strategy, not necessarily very risky. It depends how the opposition are pressing. If the opposition is sort of not even crossing this line here, then it's fine. So yeah, it's all about opposition. But I think Frank will probably opt for Vicario in my eyes. But I think we'll see a bit of a battle in pre-season.
I guess it largely relies on the personnel you've got in the team as well. Because if you don't have Christian Romero, if you don't have a midfield that's as comfortable or being able to do certain things, then having a goalkeeper play so high, Bergvall, don't get me wrong, he tried something in the second half at the weekend. It was quite unlucky and it didn't come off, and the kid's a star and whatever, that's a different. But he gave it away and they had a chance and whatever. So if you've got a goalkeeper playing naturally high, you need, I guess, the personnel around him that aren't going to give the ball away, and the ones in front of them. And that Richarlison's someone that frustrates me sometimes, he doesn't hold the ball as well, and people like that. So you need players that are going to actually, like Kudus is very good at keeping the ball, holding the ball and taking it. And same with if Gibbs-White comes in, I guess you need that personnel to actually be able to keep the ball, because you're playing a risky way with your goalkeeper so high.
You're absolutely spot on there, and I this is the kind of thing you do when your first team is fit and available. we see the likes of Man City doing it because they're all so comfortable on the ball. In terms of every single player in that back line is comfortable on the ball. You've got Ake, Akanji, Gvardiol. They're all very good footballers. And yeah, it's a risky strategy. And I think, yeah, you need to build that familiarity before you even think about doing something like that, I think. And that's kind of what I came to conclude in my video, is that this might be a further iteration of Frank rather than something we see initially, because it requires that confidence, that ability to kind of play without second guessing. Because anytime you hesitate in one of these passes, if you hesitate for a split second and they cut off a pass or whatever, then you're left with an open goal, which we don't see that often from teams that do it, because those teams are so comfortable in doing it. So yeah, 100%. You need the right profile, the right profiles and players around that. It's not just about the goalkeeper itself.
Super interesting, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that roundup and an analysis from Kish. Absolutely top stuff. I've been enjoying your videos since you've been back, Kish, and yeah, you've been a great guest on the channel. Guys, please do smash the like button. Let's try and get 100 likes for this episode. And if you want to see more tactical analysis as well as the transfer updates on the channel. But before you all click off the video, smash the like, smash the subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to never miss an upload from SpursRelated. And do me one big massive favor as well, and go and check out Lily-White Lab. Kish, what have you got coming up on the channel? What have you planned to make in the coming days and weeks?
Yeah, so I've got one video about a couple of our academy players that we can be really excited about. So I've got a video coming about 2 of our most exciting academy players coming, and then I'm also going to look at that next friendly against Luton and see if we see any sort of different tactical principles or if it's more of the same. And yeah, those are the 2 videos I've got coming up.
Sounds brilliant, mate. Yeah, looking forward to seeing that, especially obviously Luton may have a different shape, and depends how we counteract that, and depends what players play as well. Will other players we haven't seen feature? Hopefully Morgan Gibbs-White will be featuring, not maybe at the weekend, but in a friendly before the season. Let's see how that pans out. Kish, really enjoyed you having on the channel, mate. Thanks for coming on. And guys, please do go and check out Lily-White Labs. I'll put it in the description about 6 times in the video, and it's in the description below if you're watching on repeat. So please don't go and give Kish a sub, because I think he's on his way to 3,000 subscribers, and we're on our way to 4,000 subscribers. So please do keep subscribing to SpursRelated. Whack your comments in, whack your likes in, and your subscribes, and I've even got lost. I think I've done 3 plugs, so I can't even say it anymore. But really enjoyed this video, guys. Please do keep supporting the channels. And yeah, that's all we've got time for. Remember, as always, come on, you Spurs! Come on.